So today I'm joined by Sean Smyth, author of our Digital Print for Packaging report. Hi Sean, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thanks, Eve.
Glad to hear it. Let's dive right in. Why is digital print for packaging so interesting and important at the moment?
I think it's one of the hot topics because it's an area of print that is growing and it's changing. As new technology arrives on the scene, it's enabling brands, converters, and manufacturers of equipment to do more things with packaging. And I think it hits a lot of interest points. It solves many pain points for converters, but it's primarily because it allows brands to do new things with packaging. And we see packaging growing generally because there is more choice in packaged goods, which means that you have smaller quantities, less larger packs equals more packaging. But also outside of developed markets in Europe, North America, and some Asian areas, you're seeing areas just adopt packaging for the first time. And they're looking at digital methods because they can do things differently.
So in terms of sort of the key trends that are driving this, you mentioned emerging markets sort of in Asia. Is that the main trend or are we seeing other trends?
No. It's happening. Overall packaging is the emerging markets. It's Latin America, it's Africa, where you've got some new consumers with some money to spend come online. Digital packaging is predominantly in more developed markets, so there's quite a lot going on in China, which often is called an emerged market, I think, now. But as the brands, the big ones play with it. You've got the Share a Coke campaign that I think most people know about, has run billions and billions, and they're doing it again this year because it does things for them that their traditional packaging can't do.
And in terms of the technological innovations that are expected in this sphere, obviously digital print is quite a technology in itself that's quite interesting. Is there anything within digital print that we should look out for?
It's a bunch of technologies, and really the key thing to look out for is reducing speed, increasing productivity, and the ability to print onto more, a wider variety of materials. And broadly, we have electrophotography, notably HP Indigo, and they've just developed their Gen 5 technology, which is boosting the speed of label presses up to 120 meters a minute with full Indigo capability and quality, which I think is interesting. They will roll that out doubtless over the next 5 years into other formats to do flexible packaging, which is very interesting for the Indigo market. And then there's inkjet, and this can be sheet fed, it can be web fed, or it can be direct to shape. And there are lots of solutions out there that are enabling people to use inkjet across corrugated, across metal, and across rigid plastics, where the electrophotography doesn't play.
So you mentioned there's sort of the different materials that digital print can be used for. Is there a particular one that stands out as growing the most in this market?
Well, the fastest growing is metal, but that's primarily because there wasn't any before 5 years ago. So a very small market shows extremely high growth rates, and you'll see in the report various comparisons of growth rates. And while you're getting sort of almost doubling year on year over the last 5 years, it won't continue to do that. But all areas, including labels, which has been going for the longest, see significant volume growth. Value slightly behind that as more high performance machines come on speed, which are inherently lower unit cost. That allows the it makes it more competitive and it reduces the cost, but the volumes are growing much higher. But you're talking about 10%, 15%, 20% compound annual growth rates over the next 5 years. And for everybody in the packaging market and in the supply side, those growth rates are hugely interesting. And you're now seeing the traditional flexo press manufacturers, Windmüller and Holscher, Bobst, Comexi, Uteco, developing their digital solutions into corrugated, into flexible packaging, because they see the demands from their customers, the converters, are changing. And high performance, high speed, low unit cost has been okay up till now, but that's not what's going to drive growth forward. There isn't a great deal of fat left in the market. It's very difficult to reduce your costs. So people are tending to look at adding value as an alternative. And that's where digital can really play. It's well known as being suitable for short runs because it doesn't need any plates. And if a set of flexo plates on a large format corrugated or flexible packaging press can cost north of $1,500 to $2,000, you can print quite a lot of square meters of board or of flexible packaging for $2,000. So it makes it very cost effective at short, but now it's moving into medium and even long runs in some cases. Indigo claims that their V12 press is competitive against Flexo at all run lengths, and they're promoting their digital first as opposed to Flexo first, and they're seeing take up of their machines by some of the larger label producers, because these things aren't cheap, but they produce an awful lot of labels, probably $5-6 million worth on a single machine running on a couple of shifts. So the world is changing, and you're seeing more and more productive systems come into play. And the cost of production of all of these things is significantly lower than it was a couple of years ago. And our forecasts show that in 2 or 3 years' time, it's going to be an awful lot lower still. And it gives advantages. It can put variable data, it can put QR codes that are going to be necessary under more and more legislation that's developing. For example, the EU product passport, you have to have a high resolution 2D code on there. If you don't have that on your pack, you're not going to be able to sell your goods. Initially, we're talking about batteries. These are car batteries and the larger lithium-ion type batteries rather than the things that you might put into a torch or something like that. But it's going to be played out across more sectors. And by 2030, you're going to basically, if you want to sell any product in Europe, you're going to have a unique barcode attached to it. That's going to be digitally printed, and it's going to be a driver for digital printing going forward.
Just bringing it back to materials a little bit, one of the main trends that we hear in packaging is sort of the debate between paper versus plastic and who wins out, I suppose. Is there one that's better suited for digital printing, or is digital printing quite adaptable to both?
Digital printing is broadly substrate agnostic. You can get systems with the right pre-treatment and the right drying that will dry on plastics or films or foils, on absorbent paper-based substrates. The water or the carrier can disappear into the thing, and it's not an issue. It works with all materials, from metal, rigid plastics, flexibles, paper, laminates, board, and corrugate. And there are solutions for all of them. They may be different for different materials, but there is the great thing about the digital print for packaging market is we track the technology that's available. And from a technologist like me, it's fantastic because you're seeing new launches almost all the time, it seems. And we developed, and you'll see it in the report, a technology map. And it's getting to have sort of relatively small print now to fit all of the suppliers on there. And we're seeing new categories come in. So there are systems it will print onto wood. There are systems it will print onto molded pulp. And molded pulp as an alternative to plastics is growing very strongly, particularly in China, where you're seeing an awful lot of innovation and an awful lot of print systems to print onto these things. And that can be sort of high quality, sort of seen examples for halogen light bulbs and areas that protect the product, but you're seeing luxury packaging moving into that way. So the upmarket smartphones with the lovely boxes and packaging that you receive, they're stripping out the plastics and they're putting rigids in there, and some people are playing with them and they're printing on them, and they're printing competitions, they're printing a whole range of things that engage consumers, and that gives you a conversation with the brand. And the brands see a lot of value in this because it allows them to contact their consumers directly rather than having to go via a major retailer, so they don't get the consumer insights necessarily. But also it allows them to have a relationship with their consumers by putting information about the packs. Maybe they've got competitions or some promotional items, and they can improve their brand love scores and their engagement. And this is an example of how packaging is doing different things with the so-called connected packaging, enabled by putting unique codes that can be machine readable, it can be legible by humans, or increasingly now, as we're used to using QR codes to give you more experiences linked via your smartphones.
So one of the key drivers of packaging is obviously regulations. Are there regulations that govern digital printing that it's having to adhere to, or is it sort of following the packaging trends?
It follows the general trends, but digital printing has to adhere to the developments and the legislation that is emerging across the world. An interesting example is in packaging waste reduction. The void space issue associated with many e-commerce packs, which have been growing very strongly over the past few years. And for corrugated, what this means is that by 2028 in Europe, the void space must be less than 40% of the overall volume of the pack. Now, you can argue what void space actually is if you're putting an irregularly shaped object into a corrugated box, but the box on demand systems enable you to right size the pack on demand to fit that cup, that book, and whatever else you've been ordering from your preferred e-commerce supplier. And it will form a box exactly the right size for you to protect the goods inside it. And you can now print onto the outside. Maybe you'll print the address, maybe put a bit of branding. Or on the inside, you may actually produce a sort of high resolution graphic that is part of the customer relationship. It could be in a subscription pack, an upselling message. People that bought this particular fragrance like this one, or these cosmetics should choose these, or we notice you've been using this range of materials. Have you thought about these ones? Or it could be a promotional message, invite a friend along, get 30% off, or a certain amount on there. But that tailored message can be printed very late in the customer journey as the pack is being filled. And it's this late stage capability that is really interesting, because for an e-commerce warehouse, for example, and many of these companies know exactly what you're buying and what your preferences are, and they know you as a customer. They can potentially start putting targeted messages, advertising onto the pack. And then all of a sudden, instead of being a direct cost for that e-commerce warehouse or the brand that sells you through a subscription pack, all of a sudden that pack becomes a revenue generator. And it can be a source of funds for you as the capabilities and the function of the packaging changes. And that's enabled through digital print. You wouldn't be able to do that using analog methods, because as you place your order online, you expect to get it next day now as a matter of course. In many cases, you'll expect to get it same day. And there is potential, if you put a pack size link to the EFI Nozomi, for example, the X5, to print high resolution, high quality messages as the pack is being formed, which is something I think that will be valuable to many brands and co-packers, e-commerce providers, retailers.
Absolutely, that's it. Great, thank you so much, Sean. I also hear that you might be at DPP this year.
In sunny December, I believe I am, yes. I read that I'm on the advisory board, so yes, the digital print for packaging is happening this December in Berlin. There was a very interesting version in the United States a couple of months ago in June in Atlanta, where there's a lot of very interesting discussion and developments being launched there. It's a great forum.
Excellent. Well, we look forward to seeing you there. And thanks once again for talking to us about the future of digital print for packaging, the new report that's available for sale now.
Eve, thank you very much for the opportunity to talk about work that we've done.